So I thought I would do this thing. This is an idea I got from Weaponized Nerd Rage. He had a series called What Marvel Can Learn From Insert Name. And I ended up making a list of some characters that I thought writers could take some inspiration from or just find some interesting stuff in to add to their own work, to give them ideas. Or just stuff you could learn to do or not to do, or just something I wanted to talk about. And the first one is what we can learn from Django and Boba Fett. Now, they are what I consider... Well, yeah, they're what I consider the epitome or the... Oh, what's the word? Not epitome. The gold standard of a bounty hunter, basically. Like, they are to bounty hunters what Ren Tosaka is to Cinderella's. Like, whenever I think of a bounty hunter, I think of the Fets. And another thing about them is, I look at them, they're kind of like what I think Rian Johnson was trying to do in The Last Jedi. He was trying to send a message of, like, no one is special. Everyone has the capacity to do great things. Or at least that's what I got when I first started hearing about the shit movie he made. Or the shit he put into the movie. The only difference is the Fets work well, especially in the context of the EU, and in some context of The Mandalorian with Boba Fett. But neither Boba or Django are Force users. There's nothing really special about their bloodline. The only thing that made it special was them. They made it special later on. But beyond that, their family had a history of being involved with the Mandalorians in the past. But that was it. And they both had unique backstories in a certain respect. Django and Boba were tragic men. They had tragic lives. They may be cool bounty hunters, but I do not envy the lives they've had. Because, well, Django lost his family. Well, most of them. He knows for a fact his father and mother are dead. He thought for most of his life onward that his sister was also dead. It turned out she wasn't. I don't know what happened to her. The man who saved and adopted and raised him, Jaster Muriel, he died right in front of Django's eyes. He actually died in his arms after he was deserted and abandoned by Montross, who he later killed in the bounty hunter game when they were rivals on a hunt. And to add one more caveat to this tragedy, he was later made the leader of a group called the True Mandalorians. Now that is tragic because of what happened to them. There was a incident called the Battle of Galadron. The True Mandalorians were after the people who killed Jaster, well, their leader. Shit, that was a pain in the ass. Anyway, the True Mandalorians had a beef with a group called Death Watch, the ones you see in the TV show. Well, they made a deal with the governor of Galadron. He would help them deal with some insurrectionists if he helped them find Death Watch's leader, Tor Vizsla. The True Mandalorians dealt with them. Django went to the governor's manor/castle to get the information, where he was ambushed by Death Watch and Tor Vizsla. And his jetpack got shot as he was fleeing to regroup with the other Mandalorians that he was with. And here's the thing, before he had arrived, the governor who had double-crossed them had already called the Jedi, claiming that the True Mandalorians were killing civilians, women, and children who were just protesting. Tor Vizsla had killed some people to make it believable. So, by the time Django managed to regroup with the True Mandalorians, the Jedi were already there. A fight breaks out. There is guilt on both sides of this argument. Both the Jedi for being arrogant and threatening them, and Django for basically telling them to open fire. And by telling them, I mean he told his men to open fire, especially to shoot the loudmouth Master Dooku's apprentice, who was leading them at the time. And Django was one of the only two survivors of this for some reason. There was him and a guy named Silas. Silas, I have no idea where he was when the Battle of Galadron happened. He might have left at some point. But he eventually was killed by Dooku for information. And Django is the last survivor of the Battle of Galadron. There is some good news, though. He killed a lot of Jedi that day with his bare hands. One of them he garroted with his grappling hook's wire. I found that scene immensely satisfying because when you read the expanded universe, you realize the Jedi are some of the most self-righteous scumbags I've ever seen. And I can't stand self-righteous people. So yeah, what happened to them, they kind of deserved it in the end. And by what happened to them, I mean Order 66. So, you have all this, and after he realizes all his men are dead, Django surrenders. His last words he mutters to himself are, "We're all dead." He later surrenders. The Jedi hand him over to the governor of Galadron, who sells him into slavery on a spice freighter, which should have been illegal because slavery is illegal in the Republic, but for some reason this was allowed to happen to Django. He eventually escaped, returned to the governor's manor, stole some armor that the governor had been modifying over the years and customizing. And then he later tracked down Tor Vizsla based on the information the governor gave him via duress and coercion. He eventually kills Tor Vizsla. It was really an epic scene, I'm not going to lie. If you want to see it, just find Star Wars Jango Fett Open Seasons. It's good. You can probably find it online for free, or to read online for free. And then he goes off to find a job, and his life as a bounty hunter was a cold one. He didn't have a lot of friends. One friend of his was, I believe, Ross. She died. Actually, Montrose did some damage to her and caused her space station to explode, and Django barely escaped in time. Which is another reason why he killed Montrose in the end, I think. The only other friend he had was someone he met on a hunt for Kamari Vorsa. I forget her name. She was a shapeshifter. The one that he kills in Attack of the Clones. Yeah, he ended up having to kill her because she was about to tell the Jedi about him, and that haunted him. And the only person left that he had any real emotional attachment to, I think, well, some kind of attachment to, was Boba, the clone he raised as a son. And yeah, he died on Geonosis, losing his head because at the hands of a God, I hate Mace Windu. I'm not gonna lie, I hate him for that. I am so glad Anakin disarmed him in Revenge of the Sith, and Palpatine electrocuted him to death, or at least sent him flying. But that's beside the point. Boba's life from then on was just as tragic. He watched his father get murdered. He never got revenge for it. He tried, but he couldn't. Spent his life as a bounty hunter, working for people that were very unsavory. He didn't have many friends as far as I know. He didn't really see the clones as his brothers. Like, there was only one person he considered family outside of Django, or his daughter and wife, or granddaughter, and that was the son of another clone who escaped Camino. He regarded him as a half-brother. But that was it. His wife was, I think, either raped or was attempted at rape by a man Boba considered a friend or was an associate of his, and what were they called? The Journeyman Protectors of, I forget the name that the planet Django was from. Concord Dawn, that was it. Yeah, he went there to settle down after he killed the guy that ruined his marriage to a certain extent. His daughter, for the rest of her life, resented him. And actually, something happened to his ex-wife, and his daughter thought he was responsible, or for some reason she wanted to kill him. She eventually thought she did, and she never went hunting for him again. He just stayed in hiding. She eventually died. So, and Boba eventually found his ex-wife frozen in carbonite, I think. And yeah, he never really had a good day in his life, from what I imagine. Like, the closest he ever had to normalcy was his marriage on Concord Dawn, and that blew up in his face. things did finally kind of turn around for him when he later became Mandalore. But yeah, his life had some. Well, it could have used some improvements. Now, both of these men had tragic lives, but they led extraordinary lives. They were both badass bounty hunters with a particular set of skills, and they both were kind of loners, which is another thing I liked about them. They were kind of like social outcasts in a certain way, but it was by choice, not by something society had done to them. And that's all I can really say about them, other than like they were underused. They were underused characters. Like these are tragic, emotionally hurt characters, in my opinion. Like not hurt, more like stoic is another word I would use. And that's kind of what I liked about them was the stoic. Like you never knew much about them in the movies. They never revealed too much about them. They're very mysterious, and they were both meant to be like Clint Eastwood, the man with no name characters. It wasn't until they were expanded upon in the expanded universe EU that we learned more about them. But anyway, back to my original point. This is something that I think writers forget now because, like with comics, they try to make everyone a part of some minority community and say, "Oh, we're being oppressed," or a sexual orientation community. I'm not trying to make this about politics. This is just a point I want to get across. And they act like the only reason these people are hurt is because they belong to a community that is supposedly under threat by the larger majority. And it's caused them mental anguish. But the stuff I've seen them go through doesn't sound like much. What Jango and Boba have gone through, that is cause for mental anguish. That would have broken probably a lot of people. It would have broken me if I had gone through half of what they went through. So I think that's why they're interesting characters to hear about and just to read on. Also, there was something kind of honorable about them. Like, Django had a personal code. My favorite tenet of it was, if you must die, do so with valor. I don't know if Boba had a code, but he had some honor to him as well. This is also shown in The Mandalorian Season 2. He had some honor to him after he retrieved his armor. He decides to help Din Djarin recover the kid before returning to Jabba's palace and taking everything over. So, yeah, that's all I can really say so far. Just, they're not special in any way. They're just really skilled men. They had unique origins. Both fought in the Mandalorians. Well, no, Django fought in the Mandalorians and became a bounty hunter. Boba just became a bounty hunter, then became a Mandalorian, with some influence on from Mandalorian culture. Both developed into unique characters over time. There was kind of a build-up in some ways to how they became the men they became. It wasn't just shown all at once. It was gradual. You learned more about them, which is something I don't think writers do a lot. Well, actually, that might be misleading. They do that sometimes. But, yeah, they're kind of stoic outcasts and loners. Another thing was they weren't infallible. Well, I hear Boba could be a little bit infallible in the books, but, oh well. They still had moments where they messed up or things went awry. Things didn't always go according to plan for them. Like the Battle of Geonosis for Django and the Battle of as well as the Battle of Galadron and falling into the Sarlacc pit for Boba. That was not supposed to happen to him, but it did. So yeah, you could plan things out, but it doesn't always go the way you think. And that's all I can really say. These are some things that I think writers should really look at and dissect and try to make their own version of. Like just say, oh, I can formulate an idea and a background for a character of my own, but by reading this I have some influence. That's just what I wanted to do. And yeah, that's all I can really say. Which sucks because I felt like there was more, but oh well. Have a nice day, and remember the game was rigged from the start.